This was the scene last night in White Castle as the fire took a serious toll on the Nottoway plantation house. Louisiana First News reporter Kayla Gaston speaking to parish officials today to get a handle on the damage there.
A day after a fire destroyed the Nottoway plantation house, how the fire started remains under investigation.
It's a day that we were always afraid of.
Thick smoke and flames rose from the historic Nottoway plantation Thursday afternoon, a 160-year-old structure in Iberville Parish, sparking conversation about its legacy.
There's so much controversy with the past, but you know, in the generations that we didn't live in that generation, right? The main thing is the preservation of history is so important.
10 fire departments rushed to contain the blaze. Though parts of the property were damaged, the main structure still stands.
We will continue our investigation, leave no stone unturned until we determine what has caused and why this fire happened. No timetable on how long it's going to take. This is a large-scale fire, so it's going to take a lot of effort.
Our ancestors is jumping in joy right now. What a beautiful sight this is, y'all. Isn't this a beautiful sight? When I seen this, I was like, bye. We ain't gonna miss you. First thing that came to my mind was Usher. I'm like, let that bitch burn. So for the people that don't know, this was the Nottoway plantation in Louisiana, the largest remaining antebellum mansion in the U.S. I mean, was the largest. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. This joint had to go. This house right here then enslaved over 300 people, our ancestors. This joint had 64 rooms and it took up 53,000 square feet. I'm glad it's gone. Let me get some GGs down in the chat if y'all feel how I feel. Like, I don't give a fuck about this bed burning. Let it burn. So y'all don't get it? America loves to preserve the parts of the history that they're proud of, but they always want to cover up the truth.
To the white people that are so fucking mad that we don't give a fuck about that Nottoway fucking plantation that was just burned down, fuck you. First of all, why the fuck would we give a fuck about a plantation that our ancestors were slaved on? Murdered, hung, beat, raped, and forced into fucking labor. Forced to pick fucking cotton as they hands bleed. Bitch, we don't give a fuck that y'all mad. Let that motherfucker burn. And to all the people that say, oh, it's for the history, we humbly decline. Fuck that history. Because y'all done played in our face too fucking long. Y'all talking about history when, bitch, all we see is fucking movies about slavery this. Oh, massa? Oh, come on, massa. How many fucking Root movies was it? Did we even need all them fucking Root movies? Write it down, take a picture, but we didn't need that fucking plantation to be standing that fucking long anyway. Thanks, Annabella.
Welcome back to Black American History with uppercase J, because if we don't teach about Black American history, apparently nobody else will. This was Nottoway Plantation, the largest antebellum mansion still standing in the South until now. Now, on May 15th, 2025, which was yesterday, flames ripped through the 64-room monument built in 1859. Not by love, not by legacy, but by the hands of enslaved Africans. Now, its owner, John Hamden Randolph, made his fortune from sugar, but the real cost, human lives, brutal labor, generations of stolen freedom. Tourists called it beautiful. Historians called it haunting. But for many Black Americans, it was a symbol of pain, dressed in white columns. Now, they tried to save it. Over 10 fire departments showed up, but it was too late. The mansion collapsed, burning to the ground. Some are mourning its loss. Others are saying, let it burn. Because maybe, just maybe, some ghosts need to be let go.
This fire started, but as soon as it started, it seems to just erupt here at this old plantation, one that is one of the largest antebellum plantation in the South, with roots that date back from the 1850s. Now, we do know from officials is that the owner of this property was in the midst of trying to renovate the property, bringing up that back to a more historical code. We don't know, again, if those renovations caused this fire.
I keep telling y'all, these spirits that you keep playing with, keep joking about, are not playing with you. So you see that Nottoway plantation just so happened to burn down. A plantation that slaves built. A plantation that's been around since 1859. Just out of the blue, it burned down. Matter of fact, look at this shit. Look at this. So you telling me that just randomly happened? That fire just randomly started? Yeah, okay. You got these people playing around with this Annabelle doll that's on tour. You got people calling on spirits that they're not supposed to be calling on, and look what happened. And let me say this. A lot of people are upset because this house burned down. What about the people that built that plantation? What about the slaves that built that plantation? See, what a lot of people don't understand is in Louisiana, these plantations still exist. We just don't know about them. We just don't hear about them. But they are still there. Which means what? It means those spirits are still there. And it also means that some of those spirits were waiting in the afterlife for that plantation to be gone. Somebody's ancestors risked their life to build that. I'll tell you what I do know. I know for a fact that if you call on something and it hears you, it will definitely come, whether you believe it or not. I took a trip to New Orleans, and let me tell you this. When I took that trip, my spirit didn't feel right. It's a wonderful town. I enjoyed myself, but my spirit didn't feel right. I don't have bad things to say about Louisiana, but what I will say is my spirit felt that something is there. And this right here proves exactly what I'm talking about. Y'all better learn how to leave well enough alone, or you're gonna find yourself in a situation that you can't get out of. I'm out.
I don't know what caused the fire on that plantation. I don't know if it was caused by a person, an act of nature, or whatever. I don't have all the details on the cause. And I, quite frankly, do not care what caused the fire. What I do know and what I do feel is that the souls of the ancestors that were stuck on that plantation probably watched that bitch burn with a smile on their faces. And I love that for them.
Call it a coincidence, call it whatever you want. Annabelle, one of the most haunted and demonic things on this planet, is on tour. And it was just in New Orleans, Louisiana. And you won't believe what happened. That, my friends, was the Nottoway plantation. And it was one of the largest remaining antebellum plantation homes in the U.S. And it's located in Louisiana. And it happened on the 15th, which was the day after Annabelle left. Now, the fire is believed to have started in the attic area of the mansion's central section. Weird. And no injuries are reported, and the cause of the fire remains under investigation by local fire officials. You have to understand something about this doll. It's evil. Now, if you want to know the power of this doll, listen to this story. Ed Warren and his wife, who were paranormal investigators, actually bring this doll back to their home. And at one point, a young priest came over and picked Annabelle up, told her that it was just a doll that couldn't do anything, and tossed it back in the chair. Now, on his way home, his brakes failed at a busy intersection, and he was in a terrible collision that was near fatal and totaled the car. That's the power of this doll. Now, the reason why they call this doll Annabelle is because one of the first mediums to touch this thing said that it was possessed by a young girl named Annabelle. But they later found out that it was possessed by a very, very powerful demonic entity. So why they're touring this thing, I have no clue. But I find it very interesting that one of the most historical spots in Louisiana burned to the ground. Usually these places are protected, so that doesn't happen. But the attic, and they still don't know the cause? There's your cause. Whether you believe it or not, I think this thing's more powerful than people think. Oh, and terrifying.
Hey y'all, it's Neil with the Black Wall Street Times. Listen, Nottoway Plantation, the largest surviving slave mansion in the South, has burned to the ground. And while some might call that a tragedy, many Black people see it differently. That mansion was built by enslaved Black people, our ancestors. They were beaten, starved, and forced to work under brutal conditions, just to construct that massive home so the slave owner could live in luxury. Fast forward to recent years, and that same plantation was turned into a wedding venue. People were saying "I do" on the same soil where our people were chained, tortured, and killed. No reparations, no justice, just profit off of our pain. But now, that house no longer stands, and to some of us, It feels like a small bit of justice. It feels like our ancestors finally had the last word. Maybe the wind carried their cries back to the land. Maybe the fire was a message. You will not keep erasing our suffering. You will not keep celebrating what was built on our backs. That plantation wasn't sacred. It was haunted. And maybe, just maybe, with it gone, the land can finally begin to heal and our ancestors can rest a little easier. So no, we're not mourning. Let it burn, because sometimes ashes feel like freedom. Peace, y'all.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this video. People in social media are rejoicing and saying that the ancestors are happy that this Nottoway plantation burned down, one of the biggest plantations in the South. And I can't believe it. I personally didn't think that plantations existed. I didn't think so, but apparently they still do. And a lot of people are comparing it to the doll, the Annabelle doll. She's traveling. And so they say because of her and her evil spirit, burned down the plantation. And a lot of people are saying the ancestors burned it down. Well, we don't know. The Nottoway Plantation, a monument to Southern grandeur built on the backs of enslaved people, has been destroyed by a fire that raged for nearly 40 hours, beginning late May 15th. The inferno gutted the 116-year-old estate turned resort, once the largest antebellum mansion remaining in the South. Staff at the renamed Nottoway Resort noticed smoke in the south wing on the night of May 14th. The fire quickly spread through the 64-room, 53,000 square foot property, including a 3-story rotunda. It had been listed on the National Registry of Historic Places since 1980. Despite efforts from multiple fire departments, the structure was lost. Yeah, it was old. While the parish government grieves the destruction of what it calls an economic cornerstone, others see poetic justice in the ashes of a plantation that never meaningfully confronted its legacy of slavery. Built in 1859 by sugar magnate John Hampton Randolph, the estate was powered by the forced labor of more than 150 enslaved people. The loss of Nottoway is not just a loss for the parish, but for the entire state of Louisiana. Parish President Chris said in a statement, "It was a cornerstone of our tourism economy and a site of national significance. Its absence will be felt deeply by our community, our state, and by the many who found meaning in its preservation. In recent decades, the property was marketed as a wedding venue and luxury getaway, complete with plantation balls, without so much as a public reckoning with the atrocities committed on the grounds. Once a house of horrors, the Nottoway Plantation eventually rebranded itself as a museum, only to be repackaged again as a luxury resort. What was once a site of brutal human trafficking become the Nottoway Resort, complete with wedding packages, guest suites, and even a tennis court. Plantation tourism, designed as Southern charm. While the parish government bemoans the loss as a blow to the local economy and a piece of the national significance, others aren't mourning. For me, destruction feels less like a tragedy and more like a reason to celebrate. One social media user points to the lack of acknowledgement of the property's racist past as a reason for indifference. Rebranding a plantation as a resort is wild and diabolical. They don't even acknowledge the history of plantation on the website. They refer to it as a Southern mansion, they wrote. Some infuriated that the blaze appeared art-like and even invoked textile art of Ebony Hogan for reference. What? Watching it burn brought to mind, wow, it brought a painting to mind. Watching it burn. Wow, that is crazy. Another user noted the property horrific past and disrespectful and tone deaf present. Generations of human beings were held captive, tortured, raped, mutilated, hung, and worked to death in plantations. Let the sadistic ghouls who want to hold their weddings and parties at Nottoway find another concentration camp for their happy occasion. Fire marshals are still investigating the source of the Nottoway plantation fire. While it's unclear whether the fire was intentional, it is safe to say that many don't care. And we hella don't care. We just don't care. A lot of them folks are mad that this plantation had burned down, and they're in their feelings. And a lot of them folks just don't care. They're just like, it's brutal. Glad it's gone. And we're just saying, burn, baby, burn. And another person said that the Annabelle doll, where are you going next? Because they all need to burn. I can't believe it. People are wild. But hell, what do I know? I'm just a talking head. Have a great day, YouTube.
Let's see, how can I explain this? White people, we don't give a fuck about that plantation burning down. And there are a lot of white people who don't give a fuck about that plantation burning down. They actually get it. So let me compare it. Let's say I had a big, pretty-ass house somewhere, right? In a lot of land. And I killed 900 dogs. But Sean Free's ass, okay? I murdered them all. Killed a bunch of Chihuahuas, Labradors, Rottweilers, Golden Retrievers. Just murdered them. Had them hanging all over the goddamn place, right? And they called it the Million Dog Massacre, right? The site of the Million Dog Massacre, okay? Would you get married there? Big, beautiful house. Beautiful land. Would you get married there? I picked dogs because I feel like some of y'all care about dogs way more than you care about people. So I'm trying to use an example that you can relate to. Would you get married there? Huh? Would you want somebody to build a resort where the Million Dog Massacre happened? That's the plantations, baby. Okay? Except it wasn't dogs. It was black people. Lots and lots of black people that might as well been dogs. Babies were ripped from mothers' arms. People were raped, molested, mutilated. There was nothing you could do. Murdered, beaten to death, tortured, worked to death, not allowed to even think you were human, forced to believe in a religion that was not yours. You couldn't even have an inkling of your own culture at all. You couldn't read. You couldn't speak. You couldn't do shit. You couldn't blink without some motherfucker's command. It was just nothing but pure death and torture. But you would get married there. You would bed and breakfast there. Would you do it for the Million Dog Massacre if it was the same thing? It's the same shit. Okay? I really hope this helps. And while at the end of the day, yes, slavery is over. But it is. Whether y'all like it the fuck or not, I suggest y'all get a Ouija board and go cuss your ancestors out. But whether you like it or not, it is a part of the history of America. I am so sorry. But it is a part of the history of America. Like, whether you motherfuckers like it or not, I don't, there's nothing you can do. You can't erase it. You keep trying. That's why you keep turning plantations into resorts and fucking happy places where people can be. And this wasn't a happy fucking place. That's not what it was. Respect it for what it was. You wouldn't go throw a party at a motherfucking concentration camp, would you? Would you have a rave there? Would you get fucking married there? Some of them concentration camps are sitting on beautiful land. Would you get married there? No, out of respect for the history. So I don't understand why some of y'all just can't fucking respect that's the history. Like, what the fuck do you want to do? Yes, it's over. Yes, you hope that the same fucking family doesn't still own it, but sometimes they do. And some people grow up and they get it and they're like, I don't want this shit. And they sell it. Somebody else buys it and preserves it for what it is. Respects the history of it. Some people make it museums. You respect the history of it. But when you try to turn it into a fun motherfucking spot to be, that's a problem. And that's why that motherfucker is ashes now and nobody gives a shit. So I was just trying to explain this in a way that hopefully y'all understand. If you don't, I don't know, you're just fucking weird.
I used to be a tour guide at Nottoway Plantation. Nottoway was not talking about history properly. They regularly threatened my job because I was, quote, too emotional about the historical context and slavery there. I was there from 2017 till 2020 when COVID hit. The amount of ridiculous nonsense that I had to talk about on that tour was overwhelming. Dutch people, when they came in, because there were thousands of people from all around the world that would come in, the Dutch people knew more about the history of the transatlantic slave trade than the majority of people that worked at the plantation. I'm glad it burned down. Make no mistake. The type of history that they were teaching there was a bunch of just headline stuff. It was a bunch of buzzword stuff. I mean, honestly. I'm in Facebook groups and looking at people's posts about it being burned down, and the only thing that they're talking about is, this architecture. Oh, did you know that they would hide jewelry in the bedpost? Oh, did you know that these curtains were reproductions of the ones from Gone with the Wind? And the way that the script for the tour was written was framing John Randolph as a slave owner who wasn't that bad. He was nice, blah, blah, blah. And I absolutely refused to talk about that. I went against the grain. I even upset somebody to the point where they told me that calling him a shyster was racist. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, he was a shrewd and calculating businessman who put profit above all else, including his own family. And he was a coward who ran away to Texas whenever the war started. There's all this mythology about how, the lady of the house went out one time, and the reason why the house was saved is because she had a knife under her skirt and she was ready to kill those people, blah, blah, blah. She went ahead and said that they could stay there as long as they kept it up. There's zero proof or evidence of any of that. There are tons of paintings all around the house where they're like, this was the family, this was the family, this was the daughter, this was that, and like none of it is true. None of it is true. I remember whenever the news stations from all around the country were calling plantations and asking them to make a comment on the Knot, that wedding magazine, removing plantation weddings from their advertisements, and I couldn't give any sort of statement, but I went off record and went off. So yeah, I'm glad Nottoway's gone. Nobody who's actually owned it really cared for the actual real history of stuff out there, and they really just wanted to be able to continue charging people $50,000 plus for weddings there. Which also, shame on you if you think that that's a good place to have a wedding. You're an idiot. And no, the house itself was not haunted, but the grounds were absolutely cursed.
Nottoway Plantation is burning, huh? You know what the ancestors doing. It's that time, baby. Now, Nottoway Plantation is located amongst the Mississippi River Road, 2 miles from White Castle, Louisiana. And Nottoway Plantation is said to be the south largest antebellum mansions that's remaining. They got about 64 rooms, 7 staircases, and 5 galleries, and 365 openings, which is windows and places on how you get through the mansion. Nottoway was built by a slave master named John Hampton in 1859, and it was built in a Greek revival in Italian style. And he was married to a woman named Emily, and they had about 11 children. Now, he had oak trees, and 11 of the 16 oak trees he named after his daughters. But note, the oak trees were the same oak trees that they used to hang the slaves during those times. And 11 of the 16 oak trees was registered in the Louisiana Garden Club district. Now, on May 15, 2025, a fire broke out on the southern part of the plantation, and it severely burned most of the main structures of the house. Now, on the plantation, Randolph had a cemetery for his family members that was also in the back of it. At first, the fire was initially contained in the south wing corner of the bedroom mansion. So around 6 o'clock, the fire started to reimburse again and spread throughout the main mansion. But by 7:30, the whole house was burned down to the ground. No remains was left found.
I don't understand why y'all don't understand that Black Americans don't give a flying fuck that a plantation burned to the ground in 2025. That thing was built in 1859 by enslaved Black folk who were considered property. We don't care.
Nottoway Plantation, the biggest antebellum plantation and mansion in the South, was burned down to the ground this week. Now let's talk about it. Now, Nottoway Plantation was built in 1859 in White Castle, Louisiana. And the owner name was John Randolph, and he had over 155 enslaved African Americans working on this plantation. And this Thursday, it was mysteriously burnt down to the ground, and they are still under investigation. They don't know how it burnt down, but we know how. Now, this plantation was sitting on 53,000 square feet, and it was a 31-acre property. And in the 80s, they turned it into a good old bed and breakfast because, people love to, stay where people been tormented and tortured for years. And rumor has it, it is haunted, y'all. It is haunted by some coachman ghosts and all other spirits. And people just like to go stay at these haunted or creepy places just for fun. You won't catch me near an old plantation. Honestly, won't catch me in front of a plantation anyways. The firefighters that was working on this house said it was literally one of the biggest fires they've ever seen in over 20 years. 10 fire departments from surrounding areas worked together to contain this fire and to protect the nearby buildings. But officials claim that nobody was injured, but there is no more Nottoway Plantation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But let me know if y'all want to hear more about these creepy alleged stories that happened at this bed and breakfast. And let me know what y'all think in the comments.
Did y'all hear about that plantation being burned down to the ground? I hear a few folks is a little bit upset. Who gives a goddamn? As a matter of fact, it's pretty fucking rude, okay, to have celebrations at the House of Horrors. Do you know those trees, those strange fruits that once lived on those trees? Why would you want to celebrate there? Why would you want to have your wedding there? My ancestors said, well, since they're not going to get out and protest and do all of those things, we're going to also do our part as well. And well, let's start with the largest plantation.
As a Black person that grew up on a plantation in South Louisiana, it does not shock me at all seeing how sad white people are acting over this Nottoway plantation burning down. I used to ask my mama them same questions I see y'all asking in them different comment sections. Why do white people crave to get married on plantations? Anytime there was a wedding at the plantation, we used to work it. And as soon as I got old enough to tell my mama I didn't want to do that shit no more, I stopped doing that shit. Because anytime I was over there at the big house, whether I was running, hunting, fishing, walking, or either I needed to go over there and take a bath, because the lights would never go out there. No matter Gustav, Katrina, if our lights went out, those lights over there at that plantation house were 100% guaranteed to be on. But anytime I was over there, I felt like somebody was watching me. Sometimes when I would be running over there late in the evening or at night, it would look like figures were standing in the windows. My eyes tearing up even talking about the shit. A bunch of people even got kidnapped over there. I don't know if this was the 70s or the 80s, but I got a lot of stories. But if y'all want to hear more, just let me know.